So, what's your name? And where are we?
We've got now.
Yeah.
My name's Tom Little, and we're in Alfreton in Derbyshire. Just about to do a gig.
Okay, fantastic. And how would you describe yourself?
Well, I'm a comedian. I don't really know how to describe my style as a comedian, but I was worried that saying you don't know how to describe your style sounded pretentious itself, like you're doing something that complicated. I think what I do basically is I do one-liners, but they're quite long.
Okay. So you said that like what you do is like not complicated, or that some people could see it as complicated. So how do you view comic performance?
How do you mean?
So you've said that some people could view it as like complicated, or say it complicated.
No, when I say that, I said that I was worried that it sounds pretentious trying to describe your own kind of comedy. But then if you say that you do the kind of comedy that you can't describe, that makes it sound like you think what you do is so complicated. I'm saying it's not that complicated.
Okay.
That's what I mean.
Should
we start again?
No.
I think we've already gone so far. I haven't a clue what either of us are on about.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
So you use the word pretentious.
Yeah.
So do you think that there is a pretentiousness to comedy or art?
Yes. I think particularly when comedians talk about their own comedy or other people's comedy, you tend to get so navel-gazing and obsessed with every little detail of it that to anyone who isn't a comedian it probably sounds ridiculous.
And do you think that you can kind of go too navel-gazing?
Possibly, but I also think how you get better as a comedian is to sort of obsess about everything to a ridiculous extent. That is what makes you get better. Noticing the slightest changes can make a joke better or whatever. But it probably also sounds ridiculous as well to anyone who isn't a comedian to say this wasn't funny when I did it this way, but this was funny when I did it a slightly different way.
So you mentioned like an obsessive nature, and in which way does this obsessiveness manifest towards comedy for yourself?
Well, I think when you just sort of tell the same joke over and over again, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it works a bit better than you did yesterday, or slightly worse, and just trying to figure out. Just think about the same joke over and over again, saying the same words, repeating yourself. Until it gradually gets better, and you gradually understand why. The only way to do that is to just obsess about this. He's quite obsessive and just going over the same thing.
And that gradual process, do you know when you're in it, or do you only know after the process has been completed?
No, I suppose you're aware that as you're thinking about something after a gig or on the way to a gig, as you're planning what you're going to do differently, then you're aware that that's what you're doing. Yeah. It's a conscious thing.
Yeah. So what is it that draws you towards comic performance?
I think because it's immediate, really. I wanted to do writing, really. That's what I wanted to do, like write sitcoms and stuff like that. But I found that really hard to get into, because it's one thing to write a script, but then it's another thing to find anyone to read it. Once I got into stand-up comedy, really just as a way to get people to hear my jokes. Once I started that, I just got a taste for being on stage and telling the jokes myself, and that's what really drew me more into performing. That I wanted to do the writing first, but then as I got more into performing out of necessity, that I enjoyed the performing aspect more.
And what was it about the performing aspect that you enjoyed?
I just think that it's when it goes well, it's fun. If you do it, and if you do a joke on stage and people laugh, then you know straight away that it works. Whereas if you write a joke down and email it to someone, you don't get that same feedback.
So do you think that there is a difference between writing a piece of comic work and performing a piece of comic work for yourself?
Yes. Although for me, as stand up, writing and performing the same thing, it's one informs the other. But I do find, for example, I'll maybe have an idea for a joke that I think that would be funny if I tell it, but it doesn't seem very funny written down, and it's not. It maybe wouldn't seem obvious to someone reading it why it would be funny. So trying to give an example. But when I've tried to do writing for radio or stuff where it's not been me delivering it, I found that harder than I find to write for myself.
And what is it about writing or performing comedy that draws you rather than, say, writing and performing poetry or writing and performing straight drama?
I just think because I enjoy comedy myself, you know, I like watching other comedians, and I always have done before doing stand-up myself. I enjoyed that, so that's just what I'm interested in, more so than poetry or whatever.
And what is it that interests you about comic performance?
I don't know really. I just just as a kid, just seeing comedians on telly, just enjoyed that. Just seemed fun.
And do you feel like you channel those comics that you saw on TV, or do you think that you've moved away from that?
I think it's inevitable that you're going to be sort of influenced by people you like a bit. Maybe something you'll do will be a bit similar to someone else's. But I think you try not to do that. I think I was feeling like if someone says you remind them of another comedian, even if they mean it as a compliment, it sounds a bit like an insult, like they're saying you're a poor man's version of that comedian. So I think comedians I like, I still try not to sound like them. I try and sound like myself. And if I feel like there's a bit that seems a bit like another comedian, then that's probably what I'm going to be less enthusiastic about, and I'll probably stop doing it, or try and find a way to make it the opposite of what the comedian I would do.
So when you say you try to make it sound like yourself, do you mean you try and make it sound like your on-stage persona or your off-stage persona?
Well, I suppose more in fitting with my on-stage persona, but I'm not. I think in a way, you sort of on-stage persona, you don't want to be too different from your off-stage real self either. Or maybe sometimes you do, but I haven't wanted to think of my stand-up as me playing a sort of character or anything. I've just tried to think of my stand-up persona as myself, although it's probably exaggerated certain qualities.
So do you think that there is a bleed through of certainly yourself off stage, on stage, but do you think that there's ever times where your on stage persona can bleed to off stage?
I don't think so, really. Although I think sometimes in normal conversation, I think I now, if I start to tell someone a story, I think I sort of deliver it a bit more like I'm on stage. I don't think I ever used to do. I think I maybe tell a story in a more animated way or emphasise certain words. That's just a sort of side effect of having done comedy.
And does it feel the same or different when you start telling an off-stage story in an on-stage way? For you personally?
I think it just sort of feels natural after a while.
It feels natural?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So what is it that you personally get out of comedy performance?
Well, I just enjoy it really, and I think doing a gig and knowing it went well, I think that's sort of satisfying in a way that nothing else I do is for me. That that when I do stand up, when it goes well, then I feel like this is what I'm good at and this is what I should keep doing. So.
And do you think that that's like a healthy mentality or an unhealthy mentality that comic performance is the only thing that provides that?
Yeah, it can be a bit tricky because obviously we does less well. That's a problem. I think I always think it's like stand-up's a bit like chasing the initial high. The first gig you do went well and that was like a buzz, and then you just want to keep getting that back. And eventually, even if you do a gig, it's just only okay. You feel sort of deflated and disappointed afterwards, and you feel like you don't really feel yourself again until you get that gig well again. So that's a bit unhealthy in a way that you then feel like you don't feel okay unless you go from feeling like great because you make a room full of people laugh to feeling like terrible until you make people feel like you can laugh. Not terrible, but
So do you not find that there's something that kind of fills that void between gig to gig? Or does that kind of lull
Yeah, I try
continue?
to. I really like music, and so I try to listen to music and sort of. I just watch telly. I try and do stuff that doesn't have anything to do with comedy. Sometimes when I'm starting to feel sick of comedy, frustrated with it, I think it's healthy to just try and think about something that has nothing to do with it, and throw myself into that. So, yeah.
So would you say that like obsessive nature of comedy, when it's kind of takes like an incongruous turn, is better off focus on something other than comedy, whilst you get your mind into like a better place?
Yeah, I think it can be. It can be bad to be too obsessed with comedy. If it's all you're ever thinking about, it's going to drive you mad eventually. I think you need some time where you're not doing comedy. And also the thing with comedy is it starts as being the thing you enjoy and just want to do all the time because you enjoy it. But then when you have the attitude that it's your job, then it's like you never break from it. And I think whatever your job is, if you enjoy your job, you still need to have a break sometimes and just be doing something else.
So if you or someone else was kind of going into kind of a slightly darker kind of mental state regarding like obsessiveness with comedy,
Yep.
who does the onus lie on to highlight that perhaps comedy isn't necessarily being treated in a positive way? Is it the promoters? Is it the comics themselves? Is it their friends? Is it their non-comic friends, for example?
Well, that's a tricky one.
You absolutely smashed the castle on.
You mean if
So if someone was starting to kind of become obsessive with comedy in an unhealthy way,
Yeah.
whose role is it to highlight that?
I think I think ultimately that person, they know themselves. I think you would hope that family and friends would notice if someone was starting to be unwell. Realistically, in terms of promoters who are acting, you maybe don't see the same person that often all the time. So I would hope and think that most people, if they noticed a comedian was feeling a bit down at a gig, take time to talk with them about it. I think one good thing about social media is I think people are increasingly pretty open. It seems not always, but sometimes about mental health and that. I think people do seem to listen and support each other. That's it.
Okay, so yeah, I think this will probably be the final question. So what is it that you want to get out of comic performance moving forward?
I don't know really. It's just something I want to keep doing and get better at, and just sort of see where I go with it. But I don't really know what I think that is either.
So if someone said to you, you can kind of like move forward with comic performance, and like what you're saying before about it kind of like becoming a job, i.e. you'd be completely financially independent because of it, but you could potentially go down this like negative thought patterns, obsessiveness, spiraling. Is it worth it for that, for you?
No, I think if comedy's making you unhappy, then it's not worth doing. I think the whole point of it is that you enjoy it yourself. If you think you'd rather be doing something else, and do that instead.
So you think it's most important to like do it and find a way to be happy through doing it, rather than any other kind of capitalistic or financial reason?
No, I think it's absolutely fine if you feel a comedy is making you unhappy to just leave it. It's not important. It's not. I think for a comedian it's supposed to be fun. I think if you're not enjoying it, then there's no reason to just think I enjoyed this for a while and I've had enough now. I think people have a sort of the wrong attitude about quitting. I think when people say people feel like they don't want to quit comedy, that's like a failure. When it isn't, it just means you did something for a while and then stopped doing it once you lost interest in it. I used to be really into like Dungeons and Dragons and stuff, Warhammer when I was like 12 to like 15, and then just one day just wasn't. and it doesn't matter. And I think I stick with comedy, even though I get frustrated by it. I stick with comedy because I enjoy it most of the time, and I know I'd miss it if I didn't do it. If I got to the point where I thought, no, I've just had enough now, and I don't want to do this anymore, then I just wouldn't. That'd be it.
Sorry, so this will probably be my final question.
Yep.
So you said that you would miss it if you didn't do it. How do you think that missing would like manifest itself in you?
Well, I suppose one thing is because comedy is such a big part of your life in terms of how much time it takes up. But also a lot of your friends are probably comedians as well. So I suppose if you did quit comedy, then you could feel that that's like a hole that you need something else to fill it with. You need to replace it with something else. I don't know what you'd replace it with, really. So it's down to the individual. What other things you're interested in, or what you enjoy, or just social side of it. Having other friends or people outside of comedy and spending time with them instead. Instead of just doing gigs to strangers for all the time.
That was